Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel, and in today's video, better late than never, we are going to be talking about the upcoming Battlegrounds Season 12. And in this video I'm going to be talking specifically about Victory Track meta because there are some key and crucial differences from Victory and Gladiator's Circuit Track meta which will make it vastly different, primarily because Stevia Pill is significantly easier defensive node than Sugar Pill is, because as soon as Sugar Pill gets involved, there's going to be a lot of unstoppable, and it's just going to make things much more unnerving for any non-tactic attacker effectively. And Staggering Beauty obviously complicates things further. So let's take a look at the nodes first. I'm going to explain what they work, how they work, and what do you need to look out for. And as far as Victory Track's concerned, the only thing that you need to know is that majority of the Mystic Defenders are going to be supercharged unless you have a tactic attacker. That's pretty much the name of the game. Additionally, the fact that every single champion on defense has about MD3, additional to whatever MD they can have. So Prey in the Weak is effectively a node version of Mystic Dispersion. And that is something to keep in mind, which obviously already kind of, does not do any favors to Cosmic class, but realistically, Prey in the Weak 3 is not a very powerful node. It's only 3% of max power, so it's a very low level of MD that you could deal with. This will, however, be a problem when you combine it with a bigger level of Mystic Dispersion. It's just also something to remind yourself when you're pushing opponents with 2+ bars of power. Right. So, Decay offensive tactic. Attackers are immune to placebo buffs. Super crucial point, because you will not be immune to your own dex or your own natural buffs, which will still feed Prey in the Weak. Also, whenever they trigger buff immunity, inflict a 20% wither debuff on the opponent lasting 8 seconds, max 5. Attackers gain 35% resistance to damage over time effects for each debuff on the defender. When the defender is knocked down, there is a 25% chance per debuff active on them to inflict a 10-second slow debuff. Simple. So Decay attackers have access to slow. They can make themselves immune to, let's say, poison damage from Eye Bomb. So Eye Bomb is automatically a useless defender because you have nothing to worry about there. How do you know which are Decay attackers? It's quite simple. Go to your own champion roster and then add tags. And then just take a look at a W Decay, and you can see all the champions that this tactic entails. It's pretty much exclusively science and skill champions, with like a couple of exceptions of Angela and Terex from Cosmic class. That's about it. It's, a whole bunch of decent skill and science champions. Those are also going to be the key and the central point of this meta. This is largely about the tactic, and it will largely be about these champions. But here's going to be the trick of this meta. It can't exclusively be about Decay attackers, especially later on in the Gladiator circuit, but even in Victory Track. Because there will be champions that can punish you and become harder if you inflict a lot of debuffs on them, to a point where you will want to have access to a champion that doesn't necessarily debuff or is, therefore, by definition, not a Decay champion. When it comes to picking the best defenders, there's again going to be kind of like a tricky thing. So obviously, it will largely be filled with Sugar Pill defenders, which are largely Mystic champions. You can see Ebony Maw is going to be crazy annoying. Spider-Man, we have Man-Thing, we have Kindred, we have Sasquatch, we have Rintra. These champions are going to be the core, and America Chavez as well, crux of this meta. But here's the thing. It will also largely not be enough, because if you take this meta to its very basic standpoint, you're going to have a lot of science attackers and a lot of Mystic defenders. Now, what happens in a situation like that? When your Mystic defenders are getting effectively nuked by science attackers, you're going to think what those science attackers will struggle against. And then you're going to go to, let's say, skill class defenders. You are going to pick up somebody like Baron Zemo or somebody else, where those science attackers will not do well against by default. So this is going to be extremely draft-reliant meta, where opponents will try to trap each other. Because again, the default situation of everybody is going to be big science attackers, Mystic defenders benefit from tactics. In Victory Track, however, that defensive tactic isn't that beneficial, really. Like, yes, if you happen to find yourself against Sasquatch without a decay attacker, you're going to be screwed. But you're going to be even more screwed if opponents have the decay attacker and they can nuke down everything you have, and they have some other random tough defender. Therefore, all the focus in the deck should not be exclusively to the tactic champions. There will be times when you will want to place a champion that is not a tactic defender, and there will be times when you need a champion that will not be, an attacker of offensive tactic. So let's quickly kind of go over some of the champions that will likely shine. Obviously, here we have the must-have kind of like science champions. We're going to have Silks, Titanius, Cassie's, Hulk, Quicksilver, Spider-Ham. Those are going to be like the best science options to run, in my opinion, because especially in case of Quicksilver, in case of Cassie even, or Titania and Spider-Ham, those champions are not only tactic attackers, they can also be annoying defenders. So that will be tremendously helpful with you giving some sort of leeway when dealing with it. Moving on, obviously, when it comes to skill champions, Massacre is going to be a great nuke option for a ton of hard fights. We're going to have Hitmonkey, we're going to have Kate. All of these are tactic attackers thus far. And these are going to be your main skill attackers, in my opinion. Moving on, Archangel is still going to do great in this meta, obviously, because he has no problems nuking down majority of the Mystic defenders, as well as a whole other bunch of troublesome champions in defense. He will have the ability to switch off the nodes, and he's going to function just about fine. Now we're going to have champions like Warlock as well, which is going to come into play in some of the other matchups, because we're not having Sugar Pill in Victory Track, it means that as long as you are power controlling the opponent, it doesn't really matter that you have buffs expiring on you. So Warlock will still do exceedingly well with his parry heavies, not being a tactic attacker, because you're going to consistently be power draining the opponent. Those extra placebo buffs on you will not change much. And then by default, Warlock will again be one of the better options for a lot of champions that, let's say some of the science guys can't necessarily take. Similarly to Stacking Hand Spider-Man. You can just build up a whole bunch of poise, not make contact with your opponent, do not trigger placebo buffs, and then you can nuke things down with Spider-Man, and he has a wide variety of offensive capability that he will be able to do champions, from skill class, from tech class, and a whole bunch of other different classes than just your science champions, which are largely, hunting for the mystics. And Shuri is a similar thing, where Shuri doesn't necessarily have any buffs of her own, so you're not going to have to worry about the melee mystic dispersion much, and she doesn't make contact while she's attacking, so you will only gain placebo buffs when you are actually blocking opponent's attacks. So that should be quite helpful. Out of Cosmic Champions, I think it's pretty much only going to be like Hercules and maybe CGR that you will want to add in your deck, because again, it's going to be largely dominated by like Mystic Champions. It's going to be extremely easy not only to kill Hercules in defense, but it's also going to be easy to make sure that Hercules doesn't have a great matchup. And now when it comes to more defensive end that will also be tremendously helpful offensively, I think America Chavez is going to be one of the biggest MVPs of the meta, because even though she will be consistently gaining the placebo buffs, in Victory Track, she will actually supercharge herself because of it, as you will be reversing opponent's power gain as your placebo buffs are expiring, and you're just going to be able to be more aggressive. And she's a tactic defender, so she will need like a specific counter. Ebony Maw obviously is going to be ever present. Kindred is going to be a problem. Man-Thing, Sasquatch, Brintra also. Now we need to take a pause here, specifically on Baron Zemo. Now, Baron Zemo has the potential of being one of the biggest pains in the butt in the Victory Track, and especially in Gladiator Circuit. But since we're talking about Victory Track, we still need to discuss Baron Zemo specifically, as if you use any offensive tactic champion, effectively making contact with Baron Zemo 5 times is going to root you automatically. And obviously once you get rooted against Baron Zemo, it's quite a bad time. And then it's going to happen again, right? And then it's going to happen again. And as your placebo buffs are expiring, if you're not using a tactic attacker, he's still going to get more power. So the key to defeating Baron Zemo again is going to be using a non-decay tactic champion. And that is why these sugar pill or stevia pill defenders that are solid attackers like America Chavez are going to be extremely important. Like even Juggernaut, for instance, he's still sugar pill. You're still going to be able to use him to trap opponents in case they do not have a great matchup. But it is going to be important to have some champions like Chavez, like Juggernaut, offensively as well, because there are going to be traps like Baron Zemo, where you just have to have a non-tactic attacker in order to be able to deal with him. Otherwise, you're going to struggle a lot. This same principle will apply to quite a few other champions, that not necessarily to the same degree, but they will make these fights a lot more dangerous. For instance, if you are going to be using decay champions against like Crossbones is going to be gaining a ton of fury buffs, and making a mistake against that, or getting hit in a block is going to hurt a lot. Or Kingpin, if you're going to continuously keep debuffing Kingpin, he's going to get a ton of overpowers, and that's going to hurt a lot. And God forbid you accidentally, push him to level 2 or let some buffs expire, and Kingpin gets to level 2. So this season meta, at the very least, and Kraven is a similar thing, because with Kraven, he's kind of finicky to fight against to begin with. You need to worry about the root and everything else. And if you're using a decay champion against Kraven, obviously he's going to immediately get all the debuffs. He's going to reduce the all incoming debuff duration by like 80%. And at that point, he's going to be effectively stun immune and effectively or borderline debuff immune. And, if you still have a ranked up Kraven, maybe it's time for him to shine. But typically, I think people are going to be trying to trap others with something like Baron Zemo. Right. So back to the point of this tactic. This sounds like one of the more intricate metas, but luckily in Victory Track, you are largely able to use whoever you want. Maybe aside some Cosmic Champion. Only thing that you really need to keep in mind is that a lot of Mystic Champions will be significantly more dangerous, so you will need some decay attack. Because if you're going to be going up against other champions from different classes, there's just not much happening. It's just Prey and the Weak, which is a very basic node. So, the outlook of this meta looks like, for Victory Attack, it's going to be extremely nuky, because there's absolutely nothing that slows you down, limits your damage, makes you pause, no unstoppables on opponents and nothing like that. So there's going to be a lot of nuke type of champions. And there's going to be also a lot of draft trapping. Because, again, if opponent has drafted all decay attackers, you can use that against him. If opponent doesn't have enough decay attackers, your Mystic Champions will completely eat them alive. So you have to draft Mystic Champions, you have to draft decay champions, but you also need to include, additional options. So it is going to be extremely important to watch out for that. Do not get caught out without a non-decay attacker, or do not get caught out with all decay attackers effectively. And it's going to be quite intriguing to see how it unravels. Again, this is going to be largely Science and Mystic meta, but just because of that, because most of the attackers are going to be Science class, that will automatically make the skill defenders more potent. And it's going to be interesting, kind of like counter to a counter for a counter for a counter type of situation here. I kind of look forward to testing it out. I think it is going to be fun and interesting. I hope anyways. Maybe it isn't. But Victory Track meta, again, is going to be quite easy, because Stevia Pill is not a node that matters much unless you're going up against Mystic Champions. Yeah, it is going to interact with this Prey in the Week, but again, it's a low level. If it would be Prey in the Week 4 with 5%, it would be a different story. If it would be Sugar Pill instead of Stevia Pill, it would be a different story. Staggering Beauty. That all of these things make this a lot more different and a lot more complicated. Victory Track is like Baby Wheels version of it. That's really, really simple. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will catch you guys soon. Bye. proceed with. Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information